Hi everyone, welcome back. Today's story is about Officer Daniel, a strict police officer who thinks rules are everything, and how one little kid changes his whole world. Have you ever met someone who seemed tough on the outside but had a softer side waiting to come out? That's what this story is all about. A small moment that turns into something big. Before we continue, we'd love to know where you're watching from. Please drop it in the comments so we can bring you more stories that connect with you. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss what's coming next. Alright, let's dive into the story. It was a warm Saturday afternoon in a small town in Ohio. The sun was shining, kids were playing outside, and the streets were busy with people going about their day. In this town, though, there was one person everyone knew, and not always for good reasons. His name was Officer Daniel Harris. He'd been with the police department for 15 years, and if you asked anyone, they'd say he was strict. Too strict. Daniel was tall, with short gray hair and a face that rarely smiled. He wore his uniform like it was armor, and he followed every rule to the letter. If a kid rode a bike without a helmet, he'd stop them and give a lecture. If someone parked a little over the line, he'd write a ticket without a second thought. People didn't hate him, but they didn't like him either. To them, he was the guy who made life harder than it needed to be. Take last week, for example. Mrs. Carter, a sweet older lady who ran the corner store, had put up a small sign outside her shop to advertise fresh apples. It was a little crooked, and it stuck out onto the sidewalk by maybe a foot. Daniel saw it, marched over, and told her it was against town rules. "Move it, or I'll have to fine you," he said, his voice flat. Mrs. Carter tried to explain. It was just for a day, but he didn't budge. She moved the sign, muttering under her breath, and that was that. Word spread fast, and soon the whole neighborhood was annoyed with him again. But this story isn't just about Daniel being tough. It's about what happened one day that made him see things differently. That Saturday, Daniel was on patrol, driving slowly through the streets in his police car. He noticed a group of kids playing basketball on a cracked court near the community center. One of the boys, about 8 years old, was running around with a ball, laughing. His name was Ethan. Ethan had big brown eyes, messy black hair, and a smile that could light up the gloomiest day. He lived with his mom, Maria, in a small apartment a few blocks away. Maria worked 2 jobs at a diner and a grocery store just to keep food on the table. Life wasn't easy for them, but Ethan always found a way to stay happy. As Daniel drove by, he saw something that made him stop. Ethan's basketball rolled into the street, and the boy ran after it without looking. A car was coming slowly. Thank goodness, but Daniel slammed on his brakes, jumped out, and yelled, "Hey! Stop right there!" Ethan froze, wide-eyed, as Daniel marched over. The car stopped too, and the driver waved, annoyed, but fine. "What are you doing?" Daniel said, his voice loud and sharp. "You can't just run into the street like that. You could have gotten hurt or worse." Ethan looked down at his sneakers, clutching the ball. "I'm sorry," he mumbled. It rolled away. Daniel sighed, hands on his hips. "Sorry doesn't fix it. You need to think before you act. Where's your mom? She should be watching you." "She's at work," Ethan said quietly. "I play here with my friends." Daniel frowned. He didn't like kids being out alone, but he knew this neighborhood. A lot of parents worked long hours, and the community center was the safest place for kids to go. Still, he wasn't in the mood to let it slide. Next time, stay on the court. "Got it," Ethan nodded fast. "Yes, sir." Daniel got back in his car and drove off, thinking that was the end of it. But it wasn't. Later that day, around 5 p.m., Daniel stopped by the diner for a coffee. It was a quiet place, with worn-out booths and a jukebox that didn't work anymore. Maria, Ethan's mom, was behind the counter, pouring coffee for a truck driver. She looked tired, dark circles under her eyes, hair pulled back in a messy bun, but she smiled at every customer. Daniel sat down at the counter and ordered his usual black coffee, no sugar. Maria recognized him right away. She'd heard about him from neighbors, the strict cop who never cut anyone a break. "You're Officer Harris, right?" she asked. As she set the mug down, "That's me," he said. He's taking a sip. My son Ethan said, "You yelled at him today," she said, keeping her voice calm but firm. "He was pretty upset when he got home." Daniel didn't flinch, and he ran into the street after a ball. "I stopped him before something bad happened." "You're welcome." Maria's smile faded a little. "Appreciate that, but he's just a kid. He's not perfect. I can't watch him every second I'm here working, and maybe he shouldn't." "Be out alone," Daniel shot back. "Rules are there for a reason." Maria took a deep breath, clearly trying not to snap. "Look, I'm doing my best. We all are around here. A little kindness wouldn't hurt, you know." Daniel didn't answer. He finished his coffee, left a couple bucks on the counter, and walked out. To him, kindness wasn't his job keeping. People safe was the next day. Something unexpected happened. Daniel was walking his beat near the community center when Ethan ran up to him. The boy was holding a piece of paper folded in half. "Officer Harris," called out of breath. "I made this for you." Daniel stopped, surprised. "What's this?" he asked, taking the paper. Ethan grinned. "Open it." Inside was a drawing, a stick figure in a police uniform with a big badge standing next to a smaller stick figure with a basketball. Above them, in messy kid handwriting, it said, "Thank you for saving me." The colors were bright blue. For the uniform, yellow for the sun, and it was clear Ethan had spent time on it. Daniel stared at it for a long moment. He didn't know what to say. "Thanks," he finally managed, his voice softer than usual. "I was scared yesterday," Ethan said, "but my mom said you were just trying to help, so I wanted to say thank you." Daniel felt something shift inside him. He looked at Ethan's big smile and thought about Maria's words at the diner. For the first time in years, he wondered if maybe he'd been too hard on people. "You're welcome, kid," he said. "Just be careful next time, okay?" Ethan nodded and ran back to his friends. Daniel folded the drawing and tucked it into his pocket. He didn't tell anyone about it, but he kept it with him all day. Over the next few weeks, things started to change. Daniel didn't stop being strict. He still wrote tickets and followed the rules, but he was different. He saw kids playing. He'd wave instead of glare. When Mrs. Carter put her sign out again, he just nodded and kept walking. People noticed. They started saying hi to him on the street, and some even smiled. One evening, Maria saw him at the diner again. "Ethan says you're not so scary anymore," she said with a small laugh. Daniel shrugged, a tiny smile tugging at his lips. "Maybe. I'm just getting soft, or maybe you're finally seeing us as people, not problems," she replied. He didn't argue, just sipped his coffee and thought about that drawing in his pocket. It wasn't much, just a kid's scribbles, but it had reminded him of something he'd forgotten. Behind every rule, there's a person. And maybe, just maybe, he could keep them safe without pushing them away. So that was the story of Officer Daniel and how one little drawing changed the way he saw his town. What do you think? Has a small gesture ever made a big difference in your life? Let us know in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. And if this story touched you, please hit that subscribe button. It's free for you, but it helps us a ton to keep bringing you stories like this. Thanks for watching. Have a good day, and we'll see you in the next one.